these are my top 10 neutral palettes with a pop of color. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. We all know I love a good neutral palette. I talk about neutral palettes all the time because they are just some of the easiest things to wear. But I like neutral palettes if they have a little bit more interest. And these, I think, are all sort of fitting that category. Some of these are going to be more neutral to some people than others. Some of these may be discontinued, were limited edition. They could be high-end, they could be for the drugstore. There's something here for everyone. Maybe you already have something similarly in your makeup collection and you know what to look for. But yeah, there are just a couple of really good things here that I think fit the neutral with a pop of color bill quite nicely. I have 11 picks for you here today, and I'm gonna start with an honorable mention because as much as I love this palette, it's long since discontinued. I know there are a couple of other discontinued products in here too, so I do apologize, but this one I know. If you missed out on this one, I don't know where you were at, but this one, it was just too good to be true. The Zoeva Blanc Fusion. Zoeva, or Zoeva as I learned to pronounce it back in the day, is a German brand that nobody talks about anymore. I still follow them on Instagram. They are just not a brand that releases a whole lot of new things. And I definitely think that once this brand was no longer available in the US and the UK, it started to not be talked about as much anymore online. I do believe that Douglas here in Europe still stocks them, and they do still have an official website, but it's a brand that very quickly did away with a lot of their palettes, and it's been a whole thing ever since. I had a couple of these Zoeva palettes from back in the day, and I still love them and covet them very, very much, especially the ones that I've kept around for years, and the Blanc Fusion is no different. And what this essentially is an all-neutral palette with a pop of yellow, which we didn't really get to see a lot of yellows when this was released. This was very much ahead of its time, and that has always been one of the things that I have appreciated about Zoeva palettes and why I've kept around a couple of them, because as old as these are, these date back to the Urban Decay Naked days of popularity. That's how old some of these are. I think I got most of mine between like 2016 and 2018. And this is one of the original 3 that they did. It was like chocolate bar inspired because of the Too Faced chocolate bar hype that was happening at the time. So it worked really well in its little like pocket at the time. But we didn't really get to see this kind of color story a lot until we got the Naked Honey and things similar to that. But this actually has cooler tone neutrals than a lot of the yellow palettes we got after this, and that's why I've always appreciated this one. You can go all neutral if you want to, but if you want to add a pop of yellow, you can. This white shimmer has a yellow flip. It was one of the very first brands I actually tried personally that did duochromes regularly in their eyeshadow palettes before everybody started raving about duochromes, multichromes, and those kind of things. So Zoeva was a brand that was far ahead of its time. It didn't get the appreciation that they just needed to have. They are a brand, though, that really since upped their prices. I remember when I first started buying from them, these, what are they called, 10 pans? I don't know how many pans we get in here, 10. Yes, these 10 pans were around like $17.50, and by the time I bought my last one, they were like $27.50 or something that crazy. And I did buy some of the quads that they did later, and I believe those were already $27.50 for 4 eyeshadows. But it was really good quality eyeshadow. I just felt that the color stories were a bit meh, you could say. But yeah, the original 10 pans from Zoeva, I think, are still some of the best palettes ever made, and that's why I still have them. If these ever expire on me, they are direct candidates for my makeup memory box. I'm not going to declutter these. These are never going to leave my life because I just love these too much. I don't use them as often anymore because they are so old, and I am a little bit afraid that it is going to cause an issue at some point in time, but honorable mention goes out to Zoeva for this excellent neutral palette with a pop of color. How neutral this one is, I think, is up for debate, but this kind of color story where we have a mix of neutrals with pops of teals and orange is something that I have really enjoyed for such a long time. But a lot of the palettes that I have loved over the years have been discontinued. Same goes for the Kaleidos Electro Turquoise. This may still actually be on the website. This is one they've kept around for a long time. one of the original Futurism palettes, which is one of the first lines of eyeshadow that Kaleidos ever released. And this is still really good. I still really rate this very highly. And yes, it has a bright pop of orange in the middle, but that works like a crease shade. You've got a really good dark brown and this neutral shimmer to tie it all together. And then you get some turquoisey teal shades. I mean, a warm tone neutral with a pop of teal isn't anything new. We've seen brands do this since like Oblivion. Like I said, I have different renditions. I have had different renditions of a palette like this in many different parts of my makeup collection. I think currently the Terra Moon's Ophiuchus palette that I also own also sort of fits that bill, but I feel that that's more green leaning than teal, and it doesn't have that many neutrals in. And this one I just think is a really good option. So if you still own this, or if you can still buy this, I think it's a great option if you do want a neutral looking eye look and you want that pop of color for adding something fun. These are magnetic. You can take these out. I have done that with a couple of my older palettes in the past. So there's just loads of options with those little Kaleidos palettes. I'm not entirely sure how many of those are still around. Another excellent neutral with a pop of color, I think, is the Viseart Paris Nude Nuit Étoile. This used to come in a 5 pan, an 8 pan, and now it comes in the 12 pan. And you can see it's a perfectly smoky neutral color story with a pop of teal and a pop of purple. So just two colorful shades here. And we do get a purple matte, but on me, it looks almost like a black. So it really depends on how you use that shade, whether it's going to like show up. And if you're very fair skinned like me, this probably looks like a black. Maybe if you have a deeper skin tone than me, then this is probably going to look purple. But I think the teal and the purple will show up identically for most people. And then we just have some grays and some browns. It's smoky, it's fun. It has just the right amount of color for it to not be a truly neutral color story. Even though I do feel that that is what we all know Viseart for, right? Viseart is the brand with all of the neutral palettes. I now have loads of them. And I definitely don't think you need as many as I do. I think in the future, I'm going to have to do like a Viseart palette collection, like a dedicated video to all of my Viseart palettes, because I have so many of them now. And they are just really, really good at doing very, very solid neutral eyeshadow palettes. It's one of my favorite formulas, especially if you're someone with mature lids and you struggle with eyeshadow staying on your eyes, then Viseart is like my go-to recommendation for you. So they do very fun things, and they do a couple of things that have more colors in them. And this is one of the very few things that they do where I feel they do have that slight pop of color. Another oldie but a goodie, and very, very discontinued because this was limited edition. This is the Fall in Colors from Catrice. This is a rosy neutral color story, and then it has a pop of orange. So you can make this very warm toned if you want, but you can see what sort of happens. Like, can I show you this? Like, if I cover up the orange, you can sort of see what happens, right? It's sort of like rosy neutrals with a pop of orange. And I feel because the orange is pretty much smack in the middle of the palette, that it makes the palette look a lot more warm tone than it actually is. The gold foiling as well. But in usage, this looks really neutral on me, and I really enjoy this. You can push it many different ways. I'm so sad that this was discontinued and it was limited edition and it was only available for a hot minute. I did manage to find it on Amazon like 2 years after we got it, and then I bought a bunch and gave them away in giveaways because I wanted to spread the love of this palette to as many people as I possibly could. But this is Catrice. It was only 15 euros at the drugstore, and it's Huda Beauty larger eyeshadow palette quality. Make it make sense. This was really good from Catrice. One of the best things they've ever done. Something that was released more recently and that I think you can still buy. I'm not sure if it's currently in stock, but this is a collection that ColourPop is currently doing. They're sort of doing palettes for all of the different Twilight movies, it seems. We just got the Eclipse palette earlier in the year. I'm pretty sure we're going to get a Breaking Dawn Part 1 and a Breaking Dawn Part 2 at some point too. But the original Twilight palette, I think, is a perfect example of a neutral palette with a pop of color. This is going to lean a little bit more desaturated when it comes to colors. It's not going to be super bright, fun pops of color. It's more muted down and a little bit more grungy, you could say. But overall, we get a lot of neutrals in here. I especially love this taupey shimmer here. You can also see that that has a little bit of a dent from the times I've used it. You get quite a few like neutral shimmers and neutral mattes, and then you just have these like sort of grayish blue shades, and then you get 3 pops of green. So it's 2/3 neutrals and then five of these shades, so a third of it is a pop of color, but they are very muted down, so it's going to work with the neutrals really, really well. This is a great palette if bright blues and bright greens make you very nervous and you want to give it a go, but you don't want to like fully commit to like super in-your-face bright colors. Now I think this is a great beginner palette, not only because of course ColourPop is a little bit more on the affordable side, especially if you're in the US, even though these larger palettes do retail for about like, what, 35 euros now, I think. They're a little bit more expensive compared to other things that ColourPop used to do. And I also feel that they are no longer as affordable as they used to be, and especially for people here in Europe, like I am. Only buy ColourPop if it's like Black Friday sales, because else it just doesn't make sense. But yeah, beautiful color story, great colors, and I do think well worth the investment if that's what you're looking for. So I do rate this palette a lot. The Cradled in Ice from Fantasy Cosmetica was also a limited edition, and this is your neutrals with a pop of blue. There is a little bit of like a burgundy brown, but on me, these pull brown. I don't really get the purpley burgundiness that it looks like in the pan, but you can see we get 3 blue shades, and then we just have a sea of neutrals here. These 2 shimmers do have a bit of a blue flip to tie in with the blue tones, but I don't feel that if you were to like use it with some of the neutrals we get in here, that it's going to make it look like you're wearing blue eyeshadow. That's what I'm trying to say. This navy is amazing. I like a couple of these mattes as well. It just pulls together really nicely, and Fantasy Cosmetica is another brand that I feel has excellent quality. They're an indie brand from the US, and did I get this through MONOLITH already? Was I by the time this came out, I was shopping on MONOLITH for sure. So they are stocked on there if that's what you're looking for. Oh, and by the way, MONOLITH has rescheduled their launch. They were gonna launch the new products tomorrow, but they're actually going to do it next week instead. So if you didn't see my community tab announcement, then that may be good to know. So my code is still valid this week with them. So if you do want to get sort of something that is currently on the website and you want to get 5% off, then you can. You don't have to. My code will not be active during the sale though. They always deactivate the codes for a couple of days before the sale and a couple of days after the sale. So that may be good to know. But yeah, we have a wonderful Fantasy Cosmetica palette. I think this is wonderful. Do I reach for this a whole lot? No. But if you want to go for that sort of blue moment and you want to commit a little bit more than the Twilight, then this was a really good option. I don't think they still do this, but I do think that this is very easily recreated by mixing and matching some other palettes that you may already have in your makeup collection. This is mainly a neutral palette, but because we get this array of different neutrals, I do feel there is a slight pop of color feel to the cool neutrals from Sigma. This was of course very much misnamed because this is not a cool tone palette, and because of the name, a lot of people thought it was going to be cool toned, and then they got a sort of warm-toned, rosy-toned, cool-tone palette. It sort of gives you all the neutrals you could want. And then there is this like area here where you get these like purpley tones, and this gray leans quite blue. So again, it's a subtle pop of something that is going to be more colorful. Perhaps if you have a cooler undertone, then maybe these like yellowy mustard yellows can be the pop of color for you. It really depends on what you like with this palette, but that's why I think it's so versatile. So that's why I did want to mention it here. It does have some wonderful brown tones in, but it's not like boring neutrals. The way this one fits into my brain is that it's very exciting neutrals. And again, if you're someone who's afraid of using color, but you want to dip your toe in, if a full-on orange is too orange for you, there are some orangey browns in here. If a full-on yellow is too yellow for you, there are some mustardy yellows in here. If a full-on purple is too purple for you, there are those dusty purples in there. So it does give you an array of different things that you might want to look for when you want to add a pop of color. But again, if colorful shades that, like, I will be filming a video right after this one that you'll see tomorrow, where I am going to be listing some very bright, colorful things. That is not up your street, then these palettes that I'm featuring here today, I think are going to be really good options. I love this palette to pieces. I think this is one of the best ones that Sigma has ever done. Another great one, if you're skewing a little bit more warm toned and you want warm tones with a pop of color, then the neutrals from Cosmic Beauty can actually be a really, really good one. This palette was one that was an unexpected favorite of mine. It does again have mainly neutrally shades. We get a couple of purples here. There are those like mustardy yellow things. This orange tone is really pretty, and then we get these like murky green tones. It's really interesting and different for that reason, and for a warmer tone palette. I feel a lot of brands, when they do a neutral palette with a pop of color, it very often has neutral or cool tone neutrals in, because apparently brands think that the only way to make a cool tone palette is to stick grays in and then add a blue, and then we have a cool tone palette. So I always feel that we get better, like truly neutral palettes in the neutral to warm category, but not so much in the neutral to cool category. They always have the pops of color, but that's why we don't really get that a lot in the warm tone section. We have had a couple of things. The Glamatrix Bonfire comes to mind, but that actually had cooler tone neutrals in. Something like the Kryptein Cosmetics palette that I'm using today with the pops of red. The Death Tarot palette from Cosmic Beauty comes to mind. The Haunt Me palette from Blend Bunny. Like, I think there are things that have been released in the past couple of months that have that neutrals with a pop of something sort of vibe going on. But a lot of those have cool tones in and not warm tones. So that's why I do think this is quite unique in my makeup collection. Again, are these going to be the most vibrant pops of color of your life? No, because it is still a neutral palette. I did want to make sure that I featured most of the palettes here that sort of have this like neutral vibe to them, but that can give the colors if you want them. But not like super vibrant, like, ooh. That's why those things that I've been testing out with all the red tones aren't here yet. Maybe next time I do a palette video like this, I might, but I think these are all solid options as well. I think the Glamatrix Timeless Tones is another good one. I don't know, this, like, with Glamatrix, I never know whether anything is in stock. This, I think, is no longer available, but correct me if I'm wrong. I love these little dime-sized palettes from Glamatrix. I think they are beautiful. This was one of my favorite palettes that I tried last year. You can see, again, we have mainly neutrals, and we get a couple of greens and some blues. That's pretty much the way this palette works. I love it for that reason. Yes, this has its flaws. I have mentioned that I would swap out a couple of the neutral mattes for other things, perhaps. That's where I feel the palette isn't perfect. Like, I wish this gray would have been like a light blue. It would have made so much more sense in my brain, but oh well, this is what we got, and it does work, so I'm not going to knock it for that. But this is a beautiful eyeshadow palette. I think this is gorgeous. It's the Glamatrix formula that I love. I think they do some really good things, but because I'm never sure. Like, they release something, and then we get the new thing, and I don't really feel they ever really restock things once it's gone. Unless it's like super popular, that's when they do bring things back. But this one I think is really beautiful. And again, the blues and the greens, we all know, like, purple, blues, and greens are my favorite colors. So you know that that's going to happen at some point. And then I think the best ones, if you want just my recommendations of things that I think are up there when it comes to neutrals with a pop of color, it's looking into grungy palettes like the Bella Beauté Bar Poison Garden. Oh, I'm holding it upside down. But here is the Bella Beauté Bar Poison Garden. This palette put Bella Beauté Bar on the map for me. I truly love this. You can see the very vibrant pops of blue and makes you go like, wait, how is that gonna tie in to the rest that we get in here? Everything in here has a very neutral vibe to it, especially once it's on the lid. Save for these two, but I feel that they really blend in nicely with the rest of the shades. You can use it for an accent, for a pop of color. This blue shimmer is really nice just for a bit of a halo eye moment in the middle of the lid. So it's, again, making colorful shades a little bit more accessible. If you're someone who mainly wears neutrals and you want to branch out, then getting something like this, I think, can really help you. Because yes, it has some vibrancy, but it mainly has these desaturated, colorful shades, and that's what I just love about them. This like green, cool tone section I love. I love these rosy tones over here. The warm tones in here are really fun. You can go all swampy with a couple of the green tones that are here in the middle. Like, I feel there are just a lot of options, and even though there's nothing here that's like a gray or a brown, you are getting shades that are going to read neutral, especially like just out and about once it's on your eyes. But you do have the option to skew it very colorful if you want to. With this one, I really feel it depends on which shades you put together and how you do your makeup application, what you're going to get out of it. You can make it very neutral and toned down if that's what you want to go for, or you can amp it up, go full glam, go very fun and bright and colorful, or you can go super smoky with it. This is one of the most versatile eyeshadow palettes in my entire makeup collection. And finally, my favorite palette of 2025 was the Dive Room Cosmetics Magnetic Mineralia. And this is such a good neutral color story with a pop of color. A lot of the options I've shown you have like 2/3 neutrals in, or sometimes even more, and then some pops of color. With this, you may look at this and you may go like, but that's a purple row, that's a yellowy green row, and this is the only row of neutrals you're getting. You're wrong. Because something like this, yes, it has a purpley undertone, but it's going to read neutral. These two shades read like a neutral. In fact, these chartreusey, yellowy, green sort of shades don't read like bright pops of yellow on the skin. Precisely because these yellows have quite a bit of green and brown in them, they are going to go with the neutrals really well. They're going to add a pop of interest, but without it going overboard. It's not going to look it's not going to look like you've got a yellow eyeshadow onto your eye, is what I'm trying to say. So I feel that, say for like these three shades, everything on here, on the rest of the palette, kind of reads like a neutral on me. I can wear it as I would a neutral palette, but we get a couple of fun pops to add interest and to do some other things, and I really greatly appreciate it for this. I can't wait to play with the silver and gold next month. I think that already next month I can put it into my Shop My Stash to play with this, because formula-wise, this was a standout for me in 2025. I love the color story. I think Dive Room Cosmetics is one of the brands that is really sort of changing things and doing some more unique things that I haven't seen other brands do. So this is definitely one to watch, and I think this is a great neutral palette with a pop of color. So those were all of the eyeshadow palettes that I wanted to feature here today. Let me know in a comment down below what your favorite neutral palettes with a pop of color are. For me, a neutral palette with a pop of color needs to be at least 50-50, or at least work on me as a neutral 50-50 for it to really go into this category. But maybe you have some other suggestions that I maybe decluttered over time, or that maybe I have never tried before. That could very well be. So yeah, thank you so very much for watching me here today. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. I do make some other videos over on my second channel as well. 4 times a week on here, once a week over on the other channel, where I do everything that isn't makeup related. So that has like fashion content and some bookish content, and I'm about to travel soon, so vlogs go on there. It's called Floating in Books, and you can find the link in the description box down below. Also, if you are interested in any of the indie brands, I think most of these are available on Monolith, and I always have my link and code with them in the description box down below as well, so you can check that out if you want to. And then I really hope you would like to stick around, because we have one more video left in Eyeshadow Palette Week, and that is coming to you tomorrow. So I hope to see you then. Bye-bye!